So it's finally come to this then. Well, let's get this over with, I guess. Somewhere Wales, a free drive, never get game set somewhere in Wales. Knowing this channel, you probably already know what I'm doing today. I've ranked all the locomotives, all the road vehicles, and even all the rolling stock. Today, however, I will be ranking the most important aspect, at least to me, of any game, train or not, the locations. Location is key to the success of any good Roblox game, whether it be fictional or realistic. If the game doesn't have a good location or good location design, then it's not really a good game, at least to me. Today I will be ranking each of the major and minor locations in Somewhere Wales. I will not, however, be talking about any specific Easter egg locations, since there are so many, and they are meant to be Easter eggs. I will be ranking the locations in order of how interesting they are, what the location has to offer, and how well your device will run in some locations. Because oh boy, some of these will give your device a workout. With all that out of the way, let's get started on this trip through the Welsh countryside. Starting off this list at number 15 is Mount Charwell Halt. This is by far the most forgettable location in all of Somewhere Wales. Being a small wooden platform, grain loading spot, and a small shed, it's pretty obvious why this is the least interesting location in all of Somewhere Wales. Although considering it's just a flag stop for the farmers, it kinda makes sense why it's so small and sparse, still makes it a forgettable location even so. At number 14 is Andreas Halt. This small flag stop is very similar to Mount Charwell Halt, however what sets this apart from Charwell is that it has two wagons that spawn here which can be loaded with grain. It also has a siding and some farm equipment, giving it a bit more of something to look at and do compared to Charwell Halt. It's still pretty forgettable though, but at least we have some rolling stock to play around with. Coming in at number 13 is the Old Slate Quarry. The Old Slate Quarry is a non-canon location near Mount Charwell Halt across the old Trestle Bridge. The Old Slate Quarry was once the home of Gilbert and Aeolus, along with a few wrecked slate wagons. However, Gilbert was moved to port years ago and Aeolus was subsequently removed as well. The Old Slate Quarry is more or less useless in terms of functionality, but it's still very detailed and a fun place to dare your friends to drive over the bridge in an engine with. Coming down the line to spot number 12, it's the Kitston Yards. This small siding in Yards was once the spawn location for Ruttley and Richmond, along with Farmer's Friend, but now only a break fan spawns here. Even so, Kitston is still a very cool location with an unloading platform, a passing loop for ascending and descending trains, an NPC with dialogue, and a pathway to the weather changing station. Kitston would be a lot higher on the list if Richmond still spawned here, but alas, it's stuck at spot 12. Racing into spot 11, see what I did there, is a lowlands racecourse. This oval-shaped dirt racetrack is a perfect place for racing your friends and watching a derby whenever it comes to town. The racetrack has a lookout tower, several rows of seating, and an admission booth. This place is exceptionally fun to race in against your friends and with others who you just want to settle a score with. Overall, this place is a pretty cool dirt track, but it's pretty basic in what it has to offer. Racing up the mountain, we arrive at number 10, being Devilsdot. This small town is not connected to the railway in any way, but has several road connections to the Charwell logging and brine quarry, sporting several rows of houses, a church, doctor's office, several shops, and a post office along with free road vehicles. Devilsdot certainly has a lot to explore and do, although being so far from the main towns does mean it's often forgotten about, but it's still a fun little town nonetheless. Coming round the bend to spot 9 is the Old Mines. This old mining operation was the original Gallagher's mines before it ran out of coal and the company moved up to its current location today. The property has an old shed, several pieces of rusty rolling stock, a boarded up mine shaft, and an old cave which was once the admin cave that held Texas Red and the Mach 5. With all this old stock to play around with and the history of the location, it's certainly a lot more functional than the other locations. However, getting there can be a pain due to the poor track bed leading to it, which can cause engines to fall over and into the bay below, which does make it a bit hard to access for some engines. Going back up the mountain a bit, we arrive at Quarry's Halt, or Quarryman's Halt as it was once known as. This small town is the main housing and living quarters for the workers of the Bryn Califan Lime Works. The town is a small station building, a passing loop, a siding with 2 passenger coaches, several small and large homes, and a spawn for the covered truck. This town has been through a ton of changes since it was originally released, with at one point having a lot more buildings and a large platform along with a white switch for turning around trains and being the spawn point for Elmira. As of now, it's a major stop along the line going up to the quarry, and while it might be a bit empty, the design and layout certainly makes up for it. Rounding the curve from Andreas is the small town of Coram. Coram, or as it was once known as, Juneville, is the second town on the railway line, and as such is quite often passed by when heading up from Andreas. With several rows of houses, a station, small yard with loading/unloading points, a monument to tram, the Ujizaki milk warehouse, and a maintenance train, this place has quite a bit to do in terms of what it has to offer. But the lack of a locomotive spawn is a bit disappointing to say the least, but it's still an important connection to the railway nonetheless. All the way at the top of the line at number 6 is God's Keep. This is the newest station to be added to the game, not counting renames and remakes. Being the current last stop in the line, it's quite well visited by uphill trains. Spawning a small yard with several pieces of rolling stock, a spawn board for the locomotives, more houses, an AML workshop, a fully furnished Miko Mart, and 2 road vehicles which spawn in this town. It's pretty well made with plenty of stuff to do, but seeing so high up, it can be kind of a hassle to get to sometimes without the teleportation tool. At number 5 is Charwell Logging Mill. This American-style logging mill is one of the most out-of-place looking locations in all of Somewhere Wales. Having an American-style roundhouse, buildings, and rolling stock, it's no wonder why this place sticks out from all the Welsh/British architecture normally seen across the line. Nevertheless, it's certainly not lacking in stuff, coming with a spawn board, several logging disconnects, 3 American-style coaches, and a decently sized yard to shunt in. Charwell Logging Mill is one of the more jam-packed places on the line. The only issue I really have with it is that the switchback to get to the main line is really steep and can stall a good few engines with a load, forcing you to either use a banker or get an older, more powerful engine to haul the train up. It was a close call, but coming into spot 4 is the third town on the line, Kitsborough. Often called Kits, or the town, this medium-sized town is located close to the old mines and has one of the more extensive yards on the railway, coming with a medium-sized yard, plenty of freight and passenger stock, along with an engine works and carriage shed. There is no shortage of stuff to do in this town. The town also has several rows of houses, a model railway shop, marketplace with interactable NPCs, a fully furnished church, another Miko Mart, and an under-construction toy shop. There's a lot of detailed stuff into this one small town, although I do have to say it's not exactly easy to escape the rail yard when there's a lot of people, which can lead to plenty of derailments. In third place is the Gallagher Mining Division. Once known as Dead Co. Mining, this mining operation has had quite the storied past, from being one of the main factors for starting the railway, to buying most of the engines, getting a full-on killer just to lock them up in the shafts, so having everything scrubbed and reprinted and more. Gallagher Mining has had one of the more drastic changes for Somewhere Wales. Despite the main yard being a bit small with only the spawn board, coal loading area, main office, 2 tippers, and a small switchback, it's the mine which really makes this place shine. The Gallagher mines are extremely extensive and confusing, with several shafts leading to dead ends, extremely detailed tunnels, an entire elevator system, giant cable bridge, and more. This mine is really cool to explore and play around in until you get lost and end up in a place you'd rather not be. At number 2 is the Bryn Califan Lime Works. Once known as the Limestone Quarry, this massive quarry operation was once one of the less interesting locations with a small valley and extremely boring layout. Down on December 1st, 2023, the quarry was revamped so much that it's impossible to see a resemblance to the original quarry. Being one of the biggest locations in the game, the quarry has a ton to explore and offer, having one of the biggest, most expansive yards with tons of rolling stock, a stone engine shed with spawn board, a massive warehouse/works area, tons of branching paths to different locations, a revamped winch, along with several NPCs, and an old cable system. This place is nothing short of awe-inspiring. Now, while I really wanted to give this the number 1 spot, there's just one teeny tiny problem with it. That being, once you enter the quarry, your frame's going from like 60 to 6 in under a second. This place is so detailed, it's also extremely laggy, especially if you're using one of the older engines and don't have the greatest of the devices. The amount of players doesn't help either, with crashes being a common occurrence. Overall, I love this location so much, but the poor optimization really lets it down for me. At number 1 is the most iconic location in game, the place that started it all. It's St. Andrews. St. Andrews, the port, or as it was once called, Andreas, is the first and biggest town on the line, being the first place ever created in Somewhere Wales. This port town has quite the history, being changed numerous times and being expanded a lot during that time. The reason why I put it above the quarry is due to the amount of things to do and the fact that it runs very well compared to the quarry. Having a massive yard with tons of freight and passengers, rolling stock, 2 spawn boards at the sheds, an entire port along with station building and so much more, this town is one of, if not the most extensive and detailed locations on the Somewhere Wales Railway, which is why it's at number 1. Well, that wraps up this ranking video. Thank you all so much for watching what is most likely my final ranking video on Somewhere Wales, until Mural gets added in, of course. It's been quite a long time since the last Wales-related one, which was all the way back in 2022. Again, thank you all so much for joining me. Tell me what you thought of my rankings. Was I too harsh? Was I not harsh enough? And tell me what your favorite location is down below. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Thanks again, and I'll see you all later.